the NFC, Bucs versus the Packers at Lambeau, -3, over under 51. Now, weather, of course, is important here. 33 degrees, but maybe some snow, which I think is factoring in. I had looked at it. They're saying potentially some snow there, some against the spread stuff. Tampa 13-5, 9-7-2 against the spread. Packers 14-3, 12-5 against the spread. So before we make some kind of fun picks, Marcus, I think you mentioned earlier that you were maybe uninspired by Green Bay, even though it was sort of a cozy win. What about that performance was uninspiring?
I just think there was times in that game where the run defense just didn't look very good, and Sean McVay was able to scheme things up again without Cooper Kupp and with a quarterback that really couldn't throw the ball down the field. I thought the defense left a little to be desired, but you need to give credit to Green Bay. In 4 of their last 5 games, they've allowed 18 or fewer points, so it does feel like the defense is getting better. It's never going to be the reason why they win games, but if Rodgers could play really well, and I don't think we've seen that great Rodgers game in the last couple of weeks, and we haven't even seen it in the playoffs in a while, I think this is the week that we get one of those historic Rodgers performances.
What about you, Connor?
I think when I look at this game, for me, it's Green Bay all the way, and I'm with Marcus that I think we get a big Aaron Rodgers game. Now, the conditions absolutely play into what they're going to do in the passing game, and we know the Bucs have athleticism at linebacker that they might be able to match up against those running backs in coverage, but the Bucs are very young at corner, and I think they're going to struggle against Davante Adams and Allen Lazard. I really, really do, and I think Aaron Rodgers will be able to extend plays at times to push the ball down the field in this game. This is a game where this might be crazy. I would even buy it up to 6 points. I think Green Bay wins by a touchdown. I feel pretty good about that. And like Marcus said earlier, I mean, what Tom Brady are we going to get, right? Especially if the conditions are bad. He has been open about it. He was like, I'm glad to be out of the cold. I'm glad to be down in Tampa. So when you look at this, I really do believe in Green Bay going to the Super Bowl. And while the game should be competitive, I think they win by a touchdown. I really do.
And that's crazy considering that earlier this season we had, the Buccaneers win by 35 points or whatever it was. But I agree with you. I think I feel pretty confident in them winning by 7 to 12 points. And check your favorite sports bets, because that's a band out there that you can actually bet on.
Mike Evans, by the way, too, Connor, is not healthy. Clearly, I wonder a guy like that in this is not conducive for a guy that's just limping around all over the place, right? Like, one of the numbers that I looked at was over 63.5 receiving yards, over under. I kind of like the under in that. I think that's a guy of all of them, because it's been hard to watch. I give him a lot of credit too, by the way. This is not a knock. It's just the guy's playing really hurt, and I don't think this is a situation that is conducive for that.
And especially if he sees any, Jair Alexander, who is a top 3 corner in the NFL right now. So when you look across the board, I mean, there's a lot of things going against the Bucs here. And I know this seems, ridiculous at times, but I really do think the Packers feed off of the weather at Lambeau. And they've said, with the fans back in the building now, they are loud. They are making noise. They feel that energy. They feed off it. They want to play that style of football. We've seen Aaron Rodgers kind of scale it back from being a freelancing quarterback to a guy that is feeding off timing, is accepting the system, is getting the ball out of the pocket when it needs to get out. So I look across the board and just think a lot of things play into Green Bay's favor here. Why for the Bucs, it seems like there's a little new problem nagging them each week.
One last question I wanted to bring up, Marcus, I guess the total here of 51 is not insane. It feels about right. And yet there's always now, every gambler is going to play weatherman, just trying to figure out what will the snow be. And yet we saw Rodgers in the snow carve people up, and Davante Adams score 3 touchdowns. So part of me actually thinks last week was it was an under heavy week, except for the Packers involved. I actually I do like the over as one of my official picks on there in this game, regardless of weather. I think Green Bay is still going to put up points. I don't get scared by the snow. I'm wondering how you handle those situations.
Yeah, we've seen over the last 2 decades that the snow and cold really don't affect the over at all. Now, rain and wind do, cold snow do not. So
no wind, by the way. The wind is supposed to be good on Sunday.
Perfect. Then I expect a ton of points in this game. I'm expecting Packers in the low 30s. These are the number 1 and number 2 scoring offenses in the NFL this season, both averaging over 30 points a game. again, all three of us it sounds like Green Bay to cover this spread. The over feels like a good bet as well.
Okay, so I'm overing. I like Green Bay. I like Green Bay first half, -2.5. I think they're going to get out to a better start, actually, than we saw last time. The other one I like, even though we've seen our guy Dylan from Boston College look good, I'm going to go Aaron Jones over 59.5 rushing yards. I think you're going to see him have a better game. I just think offense. If this is like a 10-3 game, if Tampa Bay wins this game 10-3, it's not going to be a very good Sunday for me, right? So I've got some official picks here. Connor, you were talking about maybe some alternate spreads. What about the total? Anything else you like in there?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, I mean, that total I would go over as well. I think it is low, and I think it's a bit of mind games with the weather. You know, Marcus made a good point. You could just make it weather and everybody reacts, but it's what kind of weather. If it's cold, it doesn't really matter. If it's snowing, it depends on the kind of snow. But once again, the big thing everyone worries about is that wind because of field goals, which we've seen it even affect a guy like Justin Tucker at times. And I don't think we're going to have that. So I like the over in this game. I'm buying the Packers up to 6. I really do think they win by a touchdown. And then, like I said, the super, super long shot bet is Allen Lazard scoring twice in this game at plus 1,400. You throw $10 on that, you come away with over $100. It's just a little fun one for the week. The running backs, it's interesting that you say that, Kramer. The running backs of the Packers fascinate me because there's weeks where Jamal Williams is involved. Yep. Sometimes they rotate them back and forth. I've noticed in the postseason they haven't been doing that. And Aaron Jones, they're expected to have some kind of contract talks at the end of the year, but it seems like now they're getting to the mold of just ride this guy, right? Just get it going down the field. So I'm curious to see what the lines are for all three running backs, but that does seem like a low rushing total for him.
Marcus, where are you going? Official picks here. Yeah, we got a lot. This is where it gets kind of Super Bowl-esque, where you start throwing all sorts of things out there.
Yeah, so this morning I did a lot of research on the Aaron Rodgers passing yards total. And again, depending on your sportsbook, so make sure you shop around. That number is anywhere from 279 to 284. I'll even go 280 over 284.5. I think this is just going to be a huge passing day for them. Vita Vea is coming back for the Buccaneers, one of the best run-stopping defensive tackles in the entire NFL. Don't look for Green Bay to just hammer the running backs in this game. I'm looking for Rodgers to throw 45 times in this game and to easily go over 284 passing yards.
Okay, we transition to Bills at the Chiefs. Chiefs 3-point favorite. Over under is 53. The Bills 15-3, 12-6 against the spread. Chiefs 15-2, 7-9-1 against the spread. So, so Marcus, it starts with Mahomes. A little birdie told us today that he practiced, full participant. Even the days that followed, it seems like they've been kind of gearing us up for will he play or not. I think he's going to play. Do you have any doubts? I guess, do you think he'll play? And I know you're not a doctor, but what do you think you'll see? Because it's not just the neck, it's not just the concussion, it's the foot. The foot looked pretty debilitating.
Yeah, I think he is going to play. And the question I've been kind of grappling with myself all week long is, okay, if he doesn't play, what is this line going to be, Adam? Because how many points is Patrick Mahomes worth? I think off the top you're saying 7. That feels a little high. So even if Mahomes doesn't play, I wouldn't be shocked if this line just gets down to even, because Andy Reid is really, really good. And I think he can win playoff games with Chad Henne. I don't think you're going to need to worry about that. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to play. I think he's going to be fine. It sounds like he was good in practice. Expect him to be on the field.
All right, Connor. So what is your assessment of the Chiefs, assuming Mahomes does play? What do you think we'll see out of him? I think this is a game where you're going to have a lot of wide receivers, like we saw with Tyreek, maybe gets the ball out of the backfield. You could be creative. You've got enough playmakers there where you don't have to ask Mahomes to do a ton if he is limited, right? This is a spacing offense. So what is the game plan, you think, assuming Mahomes does play? Probably not going to be himself. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think if you're worried about his mobility, and obviously they're not going to design runs, I think we could rule that out. You're not looking at his rushing total or anything like that. You're just looking at how he can play out of the pocket and extend plays. And fortunately for him, I don't think he'll have to do that as much as he normally does, because really the key to this game is the Bills' pass rush, which has come and gone at times all season. And if you ask any Bills fan, they'll tell you that's really the one question with their team at the moment, is generating a consistent pass rush. offensive and that, is it perfect? No, they get the job done week in and week out. It seems to be that way. So I think when you look at it, I'm not going to doubt Mahomes at all. I'm not going to be skeptical about Mahomes at all. I think this is going to be a shootout. I really do. I think we're going to see a game go the over. I think that a lot of people are looking at, can Josh Allen keep up with him? And I think, quite frankly, the Bills offense can. So Mahomes in this doesn't really scare me at all. It feels like a lot of chatter right now. Some sports books won't even let you get in on Chiefs action because they're waiting for the official injury designation. But I just don't think it's going to be a problem in this one.
So you bring up a good point about the points, because I think you're going to see two recoil effects. We talked about the last game, the weather. People are like, wait a second. And then you're going to look at the Bills that scored 17 points. And you're going to look at the Chiefs' injury, and people are going to back up. I'm totally with you, by the way. I think there's going to be a lot of points. I think you're going to see the offenses bounce back. I do want to, as we talk about just the flow of this game, like the Chiefs not being able to cover was adorable back in like late November, right? Like around Thanksgiving, wow, they haven't covered since the Jets. Of course, it's the damn Jets. But like, wow, this is what they do. Like we are here, like almost 3 months later, and they still really can't cover a game. The Chiefs can't. So Marcus, like we've talked about it, is it a lack of motivation? Well, there's no lack of motivation now. It's to get to the Super Bowl. The game's only 3, so it's probably less important if you cover or not because it is a field goal game. The takeaways I had from last week, even when Mahomes was in, kind of coincide with the fact that maybe we've hyped this team up to be this larger than life force, and maybe it is not. So I have to struggle with that. Does that make sense, Marcus, in terms of how I'm trying to figure out how good this team actually is?
Yeah, because, since that Jets game, I believe it was on November 1st, they haven't won a game by more than a touchdown during that entire stretch. And you mentioned not being able to cover. I think in a game where the spread is only 3, it's just not that big of a deal.
Agreed.
Because if they win, they're probably going to win by 3 or more. I just wouldn't worry about it too much in this one.
Well, let me then ask you this. As we get into picks, I think that spread speaks volumes. If you would have told me a couple of weeks ago that would have been the case, we would have our eyebrows would have raised, right? That number's come down despite Buffalo's offense, struggling last week. So as you look at this game, Marcus, where you lean on the side?
I still got to take the Chiefs. I mean, we know how good the Chiefs are at home. And again, it's limited number of fans, but being in Kansas City, they're just so good. Andy Reid, one of the best game planners that we've ever seen. Connor, you mentioned it about the Buffalo's pass rush. If Jerry Hughes isn't getting pressure, Buffalo doesn't have anybody that can create anything. So they need to make big plays in their secondary. Now they have with Teron Johnson and Tre'Davious White over the last couple of weeks. I just think the Chiefs have too many weapons on offense. They can stretch you vertically and horizontally. Only a few offenses in the league can do that. I expect it to be close and probably come down to the last possession. But with the Chiefs being 3-point favorites, I'll still take them to cover.
What are you doing, Connor?
Yeah, I am too. And I think the problem with it is you're looking at it and you're trying to talk yourself into a Bills upset. And what is the reward, right? The reward isn't that great. That's not a lot of the Bills are probably winning this game if they cover. That's what it feels like. I don't think this will come down, like Marcus said, I don't think this will come down to a point or two. Sure, the Chiefs might not win by 10 or 15 points, but I absolutely think they can win by 4 in this game. And I think when you look at it as well, the Chiefs have been a pretty timely team. They get that Honey Badger turnover when they really need one, or a Frank Clark or Chris Jones sack when they need one. So while they have their own struggles and they don't seem to blow anyone out, they play timely football. And once again, going back to that Bills pass rush, you can't really run with Tyreek Hill that long. Travis Kelce is one of the best tight ends we've ever seen. They have weapons galore in this game that match up really well against the Bills. So I think my problem with it is the reward for a Bills upset just really isn't worth it to bet on because it's just not that much. It's not really that big of a line overall.
So I have been struggling with this all week and trying to figure out how I want to bet it because I believe the Bills can do it. And yet I'm more of a believer in points. So I'm going to go Bills over 12.5 points first half. And that way I'm kind of, I think the offense is going to be good. I've been doing a little bit more first half points bets. God, did I get hosed by Texas in their bowl game. That one hurt so terribly bad. But then I did it last week with the Chiefs and got a wonderful late field goal to push me over the 17.5. For casual bettors, it's actually a really kind of fun way to bet if you've got a belief in players, offense, or if you think a game's going to go a certain way, and yet you're unsure with a game like this, where you've got some injuries, right? You've got not just some injuries, but you have a huge question mark around the quarterback. So for me, I think the Bills are going to score. I have the same concerns you guys have, which is whatever version of Mahomes is, can you get to him and can you stop them? But I think the Chiefs are going to do their part. So my thing for me, over 53, Bills over 12.5. Marcus, I can't remember because we've been spitting out all sorts of ideas total wise. Do you have a lean here one way or another?
Yeah, I think it's going to be under. I think it'll probably be one of those 27 to 23 type of games. Really quickly, before we move on, one Mahomes stat. In the last 24 games that he's started, the Chiefs have won 23 of them. They just don't lose very often with Mahomes under center. And when they do win, they typically win by a field goal or more. So don't be afraid of Chiefs -3.
You know what? I'm gonna take Buffalo. I have to take a side in this. Like we have to pick a side.
You contrarian.
Well, no, and I'm gonna go Buffalo, but I'm more fixated on the total points here. So I like Buffalo. I'll go over 12.5 first half, and then I'll go over 53 for the game. Connor, we're locking things in here before we wrap things up. You like the total? You're going over with me. You like Chiefs, correct?
That's correct. And then the one prop I'll throw in there is I think Josh Allen's passing yards go over. And the reason they're set around 300 is because he only had about 206 last week. But Josh Allen is a guy that in a shootout should throw for over 300 yards in this game. So I think that's the one you're looking at from the Bills side.